Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Imperial Dalek build diary. In this video I wanted to try and keep it as clean as possible with having pictures this time. There's many reasons why I wasn't able to get UMPG out at the bottom of the garden to have them side by side, but I hope this video will make up for that. As mentioned, I want to try every Saturday to try and get something out as best as I can. Okay, so in this video it's going to be a lot of pictures talking over, but a lot of in-depth video and pictures as well to explain what went wrong with UMPG and why the new ones are an improvement. As you're all aware by this point now, 80s Daleks are upright, so they're not the traditional Shawcraft or new series Daleks that we all know. Reason why a lot of people scratch their heads when they look at them and go, I don't remember Daleks being that odd shape. So yes, Imperial Daleks are more upright, which is what I've always wanted. With help from Project Dalek and plans and people and builders over there, you know, this reality could come true now that I had the plans. So if you've seen from the pictures that I'm uploading, as you can see, UMPG flares out way too much on the side profile, which I'll have highlighted. If you can see the red lines, that explains what I'm on about, if that makes sense to a builder's point of view. You can see it's not as, how do I describe? The casing seems to be less upright than what it should be. This was in fact due to my mistake not knowing how to scale or upscale any type of build. And what I mean by that is the Daleks, or the Dalek plans, are really big. If you've ever come across a real Dalek, they are ginormous. Well, I say ginormous, but they are big. They're big. You've got to imagine someone's got it inside, so they need enough room for someone to, you know, operate from inside. If you go too small, you're hardly going to get anyone inside. You go too big, they become heavier and harder to control. Reason for the whole design of a Dalek is why they're that odd shape. You sit inside a Dalek, yada yada, you get the idea. The main reason why I always downscaled the Daleks was so that they could fit inside the house. As we have a very narrow stairway, I wanted the skirt to always be in one section. Now yes, most people make their skirts so they split, but I always wanted it, like I say, a solid piece. I didn't want to have visible seam lines, and even if I then filled them over, well, that would mean it'd be stuck as one piece. Dalek skirts tend to be very wide. In the case of Imperials, with their design, they are very, from a front point of view, they're very narrow. The original idea was, with the build that you were following before, with the upscaled versions, the really big ones that I still need to mould the shoulders, the idea was to stand straight up. That idea can still work on future paradigms and other things I've got in the works, but for the Imperials I had to have second thoughts. Because of how narrow skirts are, this thing could literally just tipple over, hence the reason why paradigms were so large, as well as in the skirt and base, so they had enough distance for the caster wheels to be spaced apart, so that they shouldn't tipple over that much. Imperials, on the other hand, with them still having that narrow, no matter how big I scaled up the design with everything being in correct proportion to itself, it sadly still meant the wheels were not going to be spaced apart properly, and it did feel like it was going to tipple over with me trying to basically do a demo test with it. I put on 2 pieces of wood and tried swaying it side to side, and it was swaying still. So that idea was completely abandoned, but the builds are still, they're not getting binned, they are still going to be used. As mentioned before, I will probably make one whole entire cast for Comic-Con for my, when I go out and that, so that'll be the Dalek that'll be used, and I'll make up a few other casts of the shoulders after the amount of money that I've spent. Can you blame me, sort of thing. Might as well make the use of it. So with that said, it was, you know, all down to looking on Project Dalek for help and advice. As I was new at the time, I was very shaky, very nervous. You know, if anything that I do when joining any group, that be anything, I always have to get an idea Now that I'm, part of the community and without boasting too much, now well known with how many, views I got on my build diary, it seems that people have an understanding of how much, I take the Daleks seriously and how much I enjoy building them at such a young age, being 23, of wanting to take it further with, fiberglass moulding and, as you know, the future filming and having all these ideas that I want to do make my reality something to be remembered for. So with that in mind, I asked now and again for help, and the one thing that I wanted to know was how could I correctly scale down the Imperials, or any Dalek for that matter, to about 5 foot tall. That way the skirt was still one section, but still wide enough to get up and down the stairs in one go, which did happen with Imperial, as he originally lived up in my bedroom and then lived out in the garden and now protected in some type of warehouse for safety. With that in mind, as I say, it was thanks to one of my good friends, of one of my followers, I would say, if a follower if that, who follows the work of the Imperials, as vice versa I follow his work. And the person in question for helping me with the measurements was ADH Davros. Me and him were, we still are, I would hope anyway. It's just been a while since I've been talking on Project Dalek, and I've hardly heard from many of them, because again, I have gone quiet, but I do need to check up, because I do think I've still got a few more reactions to the build diary. So with me now in full swing sort of thing, I'm hoping that people are excited to see where I go with my new Imperials being a lot more accurate, because I do look back at Imperial as new as he was and my first build. I look back and I'm like, oh, this is a bit inaccurate, and people were probably like, I was hoping for a full Imperial build. But it was, like I say, it was a great build to start off on Project Dalek compared to where I was 5 years ago. So yeah, with that said, it was thanks to ADH Davros for giving me an equation that if I times the measurement by, it would make the Daleks bigger, or if I divided the measurement, it would make them smaller. Simple mathematics. The number in question was 0.183. Now, what that meant was every single measurement on the Dalek, so that included the neck height, the neck width, every section, if you imagine, and slats. As I'm saying, I had to divide that by that measurement. So that meant not just simply getting the plans open and I'll build a Dalek. It meant that I had to take every single measurement and treat it as if I was building a scale Dalek, basically something that you would make that was about 5-inch tall or to 30-inch tall, something like that. But of course, mine being, I wanted it to be 5 foot tall. And with that in mind, I can't thank him enough, for the help that he did for me, because I can't do maths at all. I would never have known that. So where I'm going with this, if you've seen from the diagram, or if I have shown it from me recording the Fusion 360, the way I did it was I would take the original measurements and draw out the skirt section. That's how I always did my Daleks. I started out with a skirt. And what I did was I went inwards about 50mm, if that, on the bottom and on top as well, because you can't just have the bottom just scaled in. But with that said, as you can see from the diagram, when I go inwards and outwards, the front and back, yeah, they're scaling inwards quite a lot. But if you've seen from the side profile with the double panel on the top, you can see that it doesn't actually make anything of a difference. If anything, it makes the build elongated, which was completely wrong about my build. As you can see from the pictures, if I've shown any of Imperial during production or, anything to do with it, you can see that my Dalek, Imperial at the time, had so much of a hunchback on the back of the shoulders because I was trying to keep the front of the Dalek all one unison shape. That meant with that extra material, basically I think about 50mm added on, because the front and back were getting smaller but the sides weren't really changing. that meant that the Dalek itself was elongated front to back to about 50mm, basically, which made the whole shape of the Dalek incorrect, and not having that steep design, rather having more of a 60s Shawcraft flare out, basically, which is not what I wanted. So with that in mind, with that measurement that he gave me, I've now done that to the new Imperials, and hence the reason why they are just so much more accurate, as best as I can get them to my ability. I hope that's more or less explained in depth of why the Dalek design originally didn't work out and why I was never best pleased. Some people watching will be rolling their eyes saying, it's just a Dalek, can't you be happy with it? But no, if it's meant to be a certain design, like the Imperials having that much more upright stature, that's what I've always wanted. And Imp1J, he was a step up, of course, because he was all fiberglass, and he was my best Dalek to date. Getting ever so better each time, but I just still wasn't happy with it. Looking back at production shots, you know, I'm like, I can improve on that. I want the upright design because that's what I've always liked. Otherwise, it's not really, in my eyes, an Imperial Dalek or an 80s Dalek, more of a hybrid. So, with that in mind, with the new ones that you're seeing, and from the pictures that you've seen, it is coming a long way. I have currently got materials coming to start on the guns. I've done a bit more work on the dome. I've made one cast of the dome as well, so I'll have pictures of that. And hopefully I've got a few videos which I should be showing. Just getting a bit further on certain parts. I am waiting at the minute for the weather to pick up a bit, so then I can start on the skirt a little more, because I've got a bit more work to do on that and the base. But that won't take too long. The shoulders are pretty much complete. They're just now waiting to take a casting, and that will not be long. I'm thinking at least in a few weeks' time, 2 to 3 weeks, I will be starting on that section without, you know, disappointing anyone for once. I think I will be on it in 3 weeks' time. All being said, if all things go to plan. Things at the minute have not gone to plan, without going too much in depth. Nothing bad, but let's just say it's been a bit tiresome the last week. But with that said, I hope this has explained everything about the build, explained better, because I'm not great at explaining through text, but more with my voice, if people understand. And from the diagrams that you've seen today, I hope that's explained why Imp1J was not a full-on Imperial, and why now the new ones are an improvement. And hopefully the final Imperials that I'll do for another 5 to 10 years, because if I'm going this far in depth, they should be done now. There's no reason for me to make another mould or plug if they are just, you know, spot on. In my eyes anyway, they won't be spot on to other people. But yeah, with that said, next Saturday, I have no idea what it'll be, but it'll hopefully be something. And with that all, I will hopefully see you all soon, unless I've forgotten anything, which I hope I am. But I'll see you next Saturday.